Good afternoon, gentlemen.
David, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jim?
Good.
Hi, Paul.
Hello. Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Never know with these modern conveniences.
Tell me about it.
I figured out how to copy a YouTube video, which turned out to be the easiest part of the whole ordeal. And then I went over to Jim's to try to play it on his equipment, and we couldn't find like to never find anything that worked,
Got it.
but it worked out.
Good afternoon, Leonard Brown.
Hello.
David Vaughn, welcome. Charles, welcome to you.
Good afternoon.
I don't recall either Charles or Leonard being on prior calls. If you are new, welcome for the first time. If you're coming back and I just don't remember, welcome back.
It's been a while, but I've been on there before.
Thank you. This is my first time.
Great. Well, we will be tinkering with technical stuff and so on for a few minutes before the formal start of the program. But if you've got questions or anything, this is formal enough that you can ask them.
Okay, thank you. I will just be quiet like a mouse and observe.
All right. I always say I learn a lot more listening than talking. So
David, let me ask you a question.
yeah, Jim.
I've got a couple of things I'd like to talk about, but I don't know if you've got time or not. So let me go over my list and you tell me what that you might be interested. I want to talk about the scholarship naturally. I'm looking for somebody, as you know, to replace David Schultz on my committee. And I'd like for that to be an O-scaler. So I'd like to see if anybody might be interested in doing that. I have a manufacturer who's going to do a build along of one of their O-scale kits. And I'm looking for an O-scale modeler who wants to build it on the show over a period of about 4 weeks, like we did with one of your models one time.
Yes.
And so I'd like to see if somebody might be interested in doing that. I'd like to encourage some of the modelers to participate in the My Build segments of our show and show what they're building, if they're interested. I'd like to talk to them about the newsletter and their ability to get stuff in our newsletter about O-scale, as we're doing with you right now on the stuff that you've submitted to me.
Sure.
And I'd like to try to get in contact with Tom Hobart in Indiana. I'd love to be able to do something more about his layout and profile him in one of my articles in the magazine, but I don't have a contact method for him.
Okay. Jim Cantor is going to be on the program today. Jim has Tom's contact information. And in fact, before you came on the program, I was talking with Greg Vigiano about the possibility of getting Tom actually on O-Scale Central. He's a very interesting guy, both with his modeling and with his 12-inch to the foot prototype experience. I tell you what, we're going to do, in addition to the introduction and news, we're going to do a couple of segments, and after Rich Yoder's interview, we will open it up for comments, questions, and so on. And I would be happy to have you spend some time there if you can make it compact, or even figure out the ones you want to give more attention to and more urgency. Do that, but you know, we will have time then. Feel free.
That's great. Also, I'm looking for some information on O-Scale West. I sent them an email and I've got zero response from those people. So I don't know whether you have That's
Well,
on Osceola West.
I do. Last month, Oscale West had a representative on the program who gave us some updates on what's happening. They've had some leadership hiccups, but they are back. They may be on the program now. If they are not, I will send you the name of the guy who's in charge so you can add him.
That's great. When Dan put the email out about Oscale West through his magazine's email list,
Yes.
I contacted the person at Oscale West that he had included, and that's the person that I haven't heard back from. So I don't have another contact out there.
Got it. I've got some people. I'll take care of you.
Thank you.
Welcome, guys. We are ahead of the formal start of the program, but we are having an informal chat as we go. Captain Railroad, how are you doing? You're muted right now, but there are many worse things to happen in life.
Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Doing fine. Had a excellent Thursday at York. It's good to see that Oscale in all of its various modes of operation is doing well.
We're going to have, after the formal program, the usual time for discussion and news and so on. And I think it would be great if you could give us a quick summary of what happened, what is happening at York.
Okay, be glad to.
Super.
Hey, Rick.
Greg, that's a familiar face.
Yeah.
Are you still? I hope you're still wearing your Chevy hat. Okay.
Welcome, Jim Limburger and George Christie and Ed Reagan and Raleigh Rice and Joe DeFranco and Jim
Hi.
Sable. Welcome. We are informal and off the record still. We'll start right about 4 o'clock. In the meantime, our usual modus operandi is to mill around smartly. And if anybody's got questions or comments ahead of time, we try and get things sort of teed up for kicking off at 4 or a minute or two after.
David, I'll give you a call after the after we conclude here.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Jim Cantor, you are muted, I see.
Hi, David. It's Kimberly.
Hi, Kimberly.
I'm waiting for Jim to join in.
Okay, I got a message for him. I need him to follow up with Jim Kello on something.
Okay. All right.
I'll wait till he gets there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rich Randall, I have a question for you. Rich may not be at his computer yet.
Okay, I was trying to unmute. Can you hear me?
I can.
This is Rich.
Hi, Rich. I've got a
and-
question for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
yes, sir.
Is your layout sufficiently far along that you can actually do a power switch from electric to steam or diesel at the main scenic part of the layout? That may not be a very good question. Do you understand what I'm asking you?
Well, it's a DCC layout. Switching engines is no big deal.
I thought that was one of the central pieces of the operating scheme
Oh,
in your layout.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, you mean, can I, like go through a procedure to do that?
Yeah.
I can.
Okay,
you-
we ought to try and do that on the program. I'd like to see some of that Milwaukee Road heavy electric stuff that you are doing so well.
Stuff.
So we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch
All right.
for next
Hello.
month or the month after.
Okay. Hello, Rick Wright. It's been a long time.
That it has, Rich, and I've been thinking you every time I was along the Mississippi shooting on the old Milwaukee Road, went to Sioux Line, and now it's CP, and I spent a full day in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I thought, man,
Oh,
Rich
yes.
would love it. Rich
Yes,
would love it.
indeed.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Yeah, we'll see ya. Well, I know you can't see me. I don't have the camera on this computer.
Am I not hearing anything or is nobody talking?
I don't think anybody's talking.
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, some reason I got missed in the last February and March, and so I whined enough that I got help on getting on for this one. So I'm glad to see you guys again.
So that was you, Carl, talking? Carl Sorensen?
Yeah, I was talking. Am I not making sense? Which seems to be the way I'm going today.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have a camera on my computer. I'm Rich Randall, and I'm looking at your background, and it says you're in Payette, Idaho, and you've got speeders in the background.
Yeah, that's at Coos Bay, Oregon, and that's my MT-19. And I have a 14, and at present time I have a Canadian 19 that belongs to a friend of mine.
Oh, man. Well, I haven't heard of Kings Bay. Kings Bay, Oregon?
Coos Bay, Coos, Coos Bay, Oregon. Used to
Coos
be
Bay,
known
okay.
as Marshville or something like that one time.
All right, get it. All right. Yeah, I rode speeders in Idaho.
Oh, very good. Well, how long ago? You might have ridden with me.
2007 maybe, or 20, well, I'm not sure when that was. The what's the name of that? They restored the big depot
Up at
and
Potlatch, Idaho.
Potlatch, yes. Yeah, it was a Milwaukee Road Convention. We ran speeders in Potlatch, yeah.
I think in 2007 I might have been up there. This car, let's see, I ran it few years and then it was down for a while and we fixed the transmission went down on the honeymoon in 2002. And I think it was 2009 or so that I got it up and running again, got a new whatever.
Well, that must be fun running along the water there at Coos Bay. It looks like fun.
Yeah, that's before we go over the big bridge going into Coos Bay from the north.
Mm-hmm.
and they got oh, I want to call it a turntable bridge, but that's not what they call it. It pivots and
Oh, a swing bridge?
swing bridge, yeah. And they actually one year they had to get the tugboats to help push it because the wind was blowing so hard.
Wow.
And I think last year they didn't even make it into Coos Bay. The bridge went down on them, and so they didn't get to do the run on Saturday, which was to Coquille. But yeah, this car made 2 runs, and then I had my 14 last time I did it, and it rained really hard. And everybody said on Friday that they'd never seen it rain so hard. So Sunday it rained even harder.
Oh,
We were
great.
joking we need village pumps for our motor car.
Wow.
All right, guys, you got motor car people could talk for hours about motor cars.
You betcha.
Is there a
If you-
program or something?
Yeah, we're gonna move into one now. Let's go ahead and start. And let's see. I want to make sure I've got to do 2 things. One is I need to make sure that we are recording. We are. And the second thing is that I need to make Greg Vigiano the co-host. Greg, can you confirm that that is what I have done? I've clicked the right button.
Yep, looks good here.
Super, thank you. All right, good afternoon. I'm David Vaughn, and welcome to O Scale Central Online. This is the April 21st, 2024 program. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you're a first-time viewer, including those who may simply be O Scale curious, welcome. For first-time viewers, O Scale is a model railroad scale, a 1/4 inch to the foot, 1:48 proportion. O Scale 2 rail, the subject of our program today, is models and layouts that are built to scale to run on 2 rail track. O Scale Central, which is the sponsor of this program, is a nonprofit tax-exempt membership organization. Our mission is to promote O Scale 2 rail, which we call OS2R, and support modelers in the scale. The best place to check out the scale and our organization is our website, oscalecentral.com. We make these programs available as a service to the scale. They are not limited to our members. We think that it is important to get the word out. It is important to build an O Scale 2 rail community, and so we do. But that is not to say that we are indifferent to whether you guys become members. We hope you will. We hope you will appreciate what we are doing to promote the scale. And take a look through our website. There is a way to join online through the oscalecentral.com. This is a monthly program. We provide news, interviews, layout tours, clinics, and opportunities for discussion about OS2R topics of interest and to promote discussion between OS2R modelers particularly at the end of the program. So welcome. Our program today has 4 basic parts. We're going to start with news and updates on what's happening in OS2R. We will have as our first feature the world premiere of a new O Scale 2 rail promotional video. And that's important not only because we think it's pretty cool as a product, but more so because we are making it available for viewing and for download by everybody connected with a scale. Websites, Facebook pages, blogs, train shows, open houses, conventions, RPM meetings, and any group of O Scale 2 rail modelers. And we want to show you that so you'll know what's available. It'll be available for download and play with a single click.
Yeah.
Now, we will follow with a very short briefing on some of the other things that we're doing by way of outreach efforts beyond the O Scale 2 rail community and ways you can help spread the word. Our main attraction is going to be an interview with Rich Yoder. You may know Rich from his Rich Yoder models. He's a longtime brass importer. He's also been the sponsor for the very successful Strasburg, Pennsylvania two-rail shows. And we will then go to the sort of what we broadly call our good and welfare. That's the opportunity for introductions. We will introduce everybody who is here. I'll tell you how to do that briefly. We will have any announcements, help wanted, questions and answers, and what we call generically good and welfare. That actually sort of post dates the formal program. So if at the end of that program you need to scoot off, we perfectly understand that. But if you want to stay, we do have what has generally been a fun discussion. I want to thank Greg Vigiano, who handles the program and production matters for these OSC online programs. And I also want to flag the fact that these programs are in fact recorded, and they are available on O-Scale Central's YouTube channel. You can access past programs through our website. And I want to thank Ryan Scheuer for his work editing the past programs so that they can be shown. I will also thank him for doing the excellent video for the O-Scale two-rail video that you're going to see soon. So let's go on to the news you can use, which is a phrase I shamelessly stole from Dan Dowdy at O-Scale Resource, but find it useful. First, O-Scale West will be held May 24, 25, and 26 at Santa Clara, California. This is a long-time show. It used to be the West Coast equivalent of the March Meet in Chicago. It is now under new management and is being actively marketed. And if a representative from O-Scale West comes online, as we had last program, we will give him some more opportunity to tell us where O-Scale West is and where it's going. Is anybody from the O-Scale West committee on the call? I didn't see anyone, but that doesn't mean it's not someone's not there. If somebody shows up, we'll certainly give them some time. It's a great show. All of these show summaries that I'm going to give you are available in the calendar of coming events on our website. So simply go there, click on the calendar, and it will lay out the specifics on all of the shows that I'm going to talk about. Second, there is a new Indianapolis O-Scale show, which is going to be held on Friday and Saturday, September 20 and 21. The show is coordinated by Paul Hansen, who is here. The show is a little bit further out, so we'll deal with it in more detail as we get closer. But September 20 and 21 in Indianapolis. The Cleveland O-Scale show is also open and under new sponsorship. Skylar Shippey is taking over from Sam and Janet Shoemaker. They ran the show for many years. I want to thank them for their work service, and they are retiring. The new show will be a 2-day show, and it will be held on November 2 and 3. As I said, all of these shows are on the O-Scale Central website with details to exact location, time, registration, etc. Now, we've been beating the drum for 3D printing as the future of O-Scale. The O-Scale Proto 48 Facebook page and elsewhere is just crammed with terrific ideas and terrific products. And here is an example. Dylan Lambert, who is also on the show here in the audience, got a bug in his ear because I put it there to do a Lima diesel switcher. Never been done in O-Scale before. and he has been tinkering and making it progressively better. But here, I'm going to show you, is an early version of the body of the Lima switcher. This is going to be, he told me it's about 20 iterations behind where he is now. And he's expecting it to be on the market by summer. It is really going to look good. He's going to have some kind of reinforcing frame, and it's going to be compatible either with the all-nation switcher mechanism or with the Northwest Shortline Magic Carpet drive. If I have missed anything, Dylan, you are on the call. If you want to tell us anything I missed, do it. Otherwise, we will simply drop a marker down for a great coming model.
Just a correction. It's actually the Stanton drives, not the Magic Carpets. That's the self-contained power trucks they do. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, I've already test mounted it on which it's sitting on the shelf, and I don't want to go over and get it because with my luck, I'll drop it on the H10 that I was toying with as well. But yeah, there's something else we're working on with the drives in general, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut on that because I want that to be a surprise other than it's something we're working on.
It's good. As long as it's not a surprise to you. That's
well,
okay.
if it was a surprise to me, we've got a problem. But yeah, no, I'm looking. I mean, it's coming along very well. It's just getting the underframe right and done, so that way we can do the test. Do the test body, the test prints of the body and the frame.
One of the things that we have by way of the ad copy on some of the print ads that we're doing is that O-Scale is not just for grumpy old men anymore. And Dylan is one of the non-grumpy old men guys. There are a cadre of young modelers who are very technically proficient. And some of the modelers who are doing 3D printing, you ask them about it and they tell you how complicated it is and how many charts and graphs and iterations it needs. But the guys like Dylan come in and you say, "Can you do this?" He says, "Sure, I can do that." So
well,
it's
basically what I've been doing. I mean, take the ore cars that I did because John Dunn introduced me to them. September, last September 29th is when they first came up, and they were shipping mid-January. I mean,
terrific.
No need to cut metal either, which made it easy.
We will have some more discussion of what's going on with other models, including perhaps some questions for Dylan toward the end of the program. I want to turn to what we've been doing by way of outreach and publicity. We think that O-Scale 2-rail is absolutely the most satisfying scale to model in. I'm sure you all do too, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here. It's got great detail, satisfying mass, and the relationship between the modeler and the model makes it a very satisfying experience to create and to build in our scale. We also think that OS2R is the best kept secret in model railroading. Most current modelers do not know that O-Scale 2-rail exists without a rail down the center and a train load of giraffe cars. So it's our mission as O-Scale Central to lift the cover on that secret, and a great group of people in O-Scale 2-rail and O-Scale Central leadership are working on just that. And why do we do that? Well, increasing the visibility of the scale will, we think, increase the number of modelers who work in the scale. That means more manufacturers will be willing to undertake O-Scale 2-rail projects, that shows and conventions will be better attended and more profitable, and ultimately that the markets for our own models will be raised. It's all good. Every part of it is good. Our latest effort to raise the profile of O-Scale 2 Rail is the 10-minute promotional video that I referred to before. We educate and we advocate for OS2R. As indicated, it'll be available free and without restriction to each of your organizations and for you individually in order to sell our scale. And what I'm going to do, if we can get the technology to work, and Greg Vigiano has been coaching me on this, and I think I'm probably up to at least a passing grade on it. Share sound, bingo. Okay, I'm sharing, but it doesn't tell me what. This whole technology thing is never going to work. I just want to tell you. Bing. This worked so well before.
Well, click the screen, click the video box, and then it should start up, David.
Video box. Help me.
Well, the click the image area, and it should unpause. There you go.
Hello, I'm David Vaughn of O-Scale Central. O-Scale 2 Rail is a model railroad scale of 1/4 inch to the foot, 1 to 48, running on 2 rail track. O-Scale Central is a membership organization that promotes O-Scale 2 Rail, or OS2R, and supports modelers in the scale. O-Scale 2 Rail is the best kept secret in model railroading. We're working to fix that. In this video, we will present an overview of the scale and outline why you should make OS2R a part of your modeling. Model railroading has always been fun. That's true regardless of scale or level of prototype detail or operation. But to toot our own horn, O-Scale 2 Rail is special. We are a big-time scale and our fun is big time. O-Scale has detail you can see, mass you can feel, and models easy and satisfying to build. At twice the proportion and 8 times the mass of HO, O-Scale's heft allows equipment to perform better and feel more prototypical. Its size makes detailing and weathering both easier to apply and easier to see. Operation is more satisfying when equipment and uncoupling are more reliable, car numbers are easier to read, and trains better duplicate the feel of the prototype. DCC and sound are not only easier to install in larger O-Scale engines, but the sound quality from our larger speakers is a significant step up. O-Scale 2 Rail is as varied as railroading itself. Modern trains, transition era or old time, standard gauge or narrow, mainline, branch lines, or trolleys. Let's take in some of the action on OS2R layouts, large and small. Our modelers are into everything from the latest diesels and double stacks, back to the Civil War, and every era and variety between. Narrow gauge layouts allow small engines and spectacular scenery. ON30 even offers O-Scale trains running on HO gauge track and curves. O-Scale traction offers city running with street corner radius curves. A wide variety of OS2R models is available at affordable prices comparable to quality HO. The ease of modeling in OS2R creates an outstanding modeling experience. If you've been building and running trains in smaller scales, it will be 8 times as good in O-Scale. Just saying. You can find out more about O-Scale 2 Rail at our website, oscalecentral.com. There you will find information about the scale, how to get started, and a list of answers to frequently asked questions. The O-Scale Central website also offers a free product and service guide. The trademarked guide is indexed and searchable It lists over 200 vendors who produce OS2R products and provide service to the scale. The website also lists coming OS2R shows.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Facebook pages,
Fantastic.
clubs, and can you please mute yourself? OS2R publications. OScale Central is a nonprofit 501c tax-exempt membership organization. OScale Central is also the National Model Railroad Association's designated special interest group for OScale. We work with NMRA to ensure OScale's presence in NMRA meets and conventions. OScale Central presents a monthly online program of news, interviews, layout tours, and clinics of interest to OScale 2-rail modelers. We publish a quarterly journal and a newsletter, both online, and sponsor a YouTube channel accessible through the website. OSC also provides outreach to all scale train shows to display the advantages of OScale 2-rail. On the website, you will find information about how to join and participate in OScale Central. Dues are only $24 per year. Membership gives you access to members-only benefits, as well as supporting the many scale-wide programs and services we provide. I also recommend OScale Resource, a free online bi-monthly magazine with over 100 pages per issue, as well as an in-depth OScale Trains Annual, which is available in hard copy from White River Publications. A number of manufacturers produce ready-to-run models, Craftsman or shake-the-box kits in OScale. As examples, Atlas has a full line of engines and rolling stock and a complete line of prefab and sectional track and turnouts. The Atlas website is atlasrr.com. Sunset Third Rail imports a full range of diesels, electrics, steam locomotives, and passenger trains. Their website is 3rdrail.com. Dozens of other companies produce ready-to-run models and kits, either to be built as is or kit bashed to match your favorite prototype. Current production and the hundreds of thousands of models produced over the long history of OScale remain available through the very active secondary market of retailers, train shows, the OScale train section on eBay, as well as specialized auctions, websites such as OScale Yard Sale, and the vendors in our guide. Models are easily available. 3D printing, which allows CAD-based drawings of equipment and detail parts to be printed on home or commercial printers, is spreading rapidly. The process produces incredible detail and has minimal development cost, no minimum orders, and essentially no inventory. 3D printing will significantly impact on model railroading in all scales, but nowhere more than OScale 2-rail. The scale has a bright future. Manufacturers and modelers have been producing OScale models for well over a century. We all stand in the shoes of generations of OScale modelers who have gone before us. Which leads us to what the model railroading hobby and OScale in particular are all about. There's satisfaction in building, owning, and running models, and it is certainly possible to pursue your hobby as a lone wolf, whether from choice or necessity. Many modelers do it. But in the end, much of the satisfaction in model railroading comes from the friends we make and the experiences we share. OScale 2-rail has great people, whether in an OScale club, a modular group, a Facebook page, a special interest group, online programs, or just informal gatherings of friends. OScale modelers welcome those new to the scale and help them get started, sharing tips and techniques. Getting plugged into the OS2R community will enhance your modeling satisfaction. Modelers can get stale. We all benefit from fresh challenges. A new scale, particularly one with great potential for modeling satisfaction, will give your modeling a boost. We hear all the time from modelers in other scales that they like OScale but feel they cannot convert. Modelers do not have to leave their present equipment or scale to model in OScale 2-rail. Keep your models in your layout. but purchase an O-Scale kit, join an O-Scale group, attend an O-Scale show, watch O-Scale layout tours, tune in to an O-Scale online program. You will be amazed. Modelers express concern that O-Scale can be too expensive, takes too much room, and that the variety of equipment will be too limited. We call those the myths of O-Scale. None are true. Let's take them head on. Between current production and legacy equipment available on the secondary market, anything available in smaller scales is available in OS2R. Here's a tip. If you decide to switch, selling off your present scale equipment will finance your O-Scale purchases. It worked for me. It's true that O-Scale 2-Rail takes 4 times the area as HO, but layouts in O-Scale can be built on a shelf or in a small area to replicate branch lines, model selective slices of larger prototypes, or reflect layout themes such as switching, operations, narrow gauge, or traction. For modelers who need to scratch an itch, lots of track plans for larger areas are available, but access to club layouts or participation in modular groups can help fill the need. So if you're O-Scale curious, start with oscalecentral.com. Join O-Scale Central. Take it where it leads you. You will be glad you did. Thanks for hanging with us for this introduction to O-Scale 2-Rail. We want to lose that best-kept secret designation and become your scale. When your eyes are going bifocular, or when you need a fresh challenge, try OS2R. Thanks. There you go. That is available through the website. We'll make it a one-click link. And it is available for your own use. It's available for any organization you belong to, for any activity you want to. We would love to see this on a TV screen at every train show where there are O-Scalers present, particularly for people who are, for shows that are not focused primarily on O-Scale. So, and we can have more discussion on how that might unfold toward the end of the show. So if you've got questions that follow on from seeing the video, by all means, make a note and we'll talk about them a little later. Now, this is by far not the only thing that O-Scale Central is doing to reach both further into the O-Scale community and then beyond. For example, we sponsor a segment on Jim Kello's New Tracks program. We are a sponsor for a segment of the NMRA Pacific Coast Region's hybrid convention that includes online content. It will be a good program. Consider attending, and we are using that to reach beyond OS2R into the larger modeling community. We have in place a print advertising campaign, and I'm not sure I can do this in sufficient time, but I will put up a click before we get out of here on some of the ads that we are running. One of them is, I think I alluded to a caption that says, O-Scale 2-Rail, it's not just for grumpy old men anymore. You might say, if you can read this, something in fairly small type, maybe you're ready for O-Scale 2-Rail, etc. So we are effecting new features for particularly for railroad prototype modeler meets. We're using the upcoming St. Louis RPM, which is one of the best of the RPM meets around the country, to come up with an effective strategy, which we hope we can then take on the road, explain to other people, so they'll do it. We'll have Jim Cantor's 8x16 Proto 48 layout. We'll have learning center tables. We'll have concentrated model entries for O-Scale and clinics that will be focused on O-Scale. We think O-Scale is the natural scale for railroad prototype modelers, and we really need to up our game to get out to them. So watch this space. Obviously, if you go to Railroad Prototype Modeler Meets, you can be your own promoter by taking O-Scale models to display, by participating actively and everything else that goes on at those meets. I note that we've been getting some help from the mainstream modeling press. The January Model Railroader had an article on Ed Rapé's layout. The February Railroad Model Craftsman had an article on John Sethian's Pennsylvania layout. There are several articles that are going on, and you know, sometimes the model railroad trade press needs a new focus. So, you know, they need whatever is happening now, and we hope we are being the beneficiaries of that. You all can help that with your own author ship of articles, your own editorial support and letters to the editor, etc., to help raise the profile of O-Scale. We're all in this together. Now, we're doing a lot of other stuff too, which we think cumulatively is going to help with the visibility of O-Scale. We have a forum for O-Scale clubs and modular groups where they can gather and discuss problems and things that they've done in response to those problems. We have starting a online layout registry where people will be able to actually do a video of their layout to sort of memorialize what it looks like, how it works, and what the modeler's role in it is. People will be able to document their layout online, and that will probably be behind a membership wall just to minimize security issues. And this is all in addition to the things that we are already doing, which you heard a list of in the video, and which I won't repeat. So we are out there promoting the scale. We hope that you will join us. We hope you'll start by downloading and spreading the word with our video. All right. With that, and we will have time for comments and questions toward the end of the program. I would like to turn to the next segment, which is to have a conversation with Rich Yoder. Rich, are you on the call? I'm not seeing all of the screen here. If you are on the call, by all means,
I believe I'm on the call, David. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, which means that we can all hear you. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much, Rich, for taking time to be on the call. And I'm going to start by showing something that most of you are probably familiar with, and that's one of these big red boxes which come from Rich and have been circulating around for, what, 25 years? Rich is one of the long-time brass model importers, and I say that sort of advisedly because I remember when Rich was just starting out, but he is really one of the mainstream folks here. not only for owning and importing Rich Yoder or RY models, but also as a sponsor for the very successful long-running Strasburg, Pennsylvania two-rail O-scale show. He has been a real contributor to the scale. Rich, I want to welcome you to O-Scale Central Online. Thanks for talking with us. So why don't we, I promised these would be softball questions that Rich could take in any direction that he wanted. There will be no confrontation on any of this. So why don't we start by having you tell us how you got started in model railroading, and in particular how you got to O-scale two rail.
Okay, David. Good afternoon, everybody. I, like a lot of you, probably started in the same way. Your father had influence on you. And my dad, I was 3 years old when I remember my first trip to a train store. And we went to that train store, Lionel store, and looked at trains, and my dad made some kind of deal with somebody to purchase a train. And that particular Christmas, that train ended up underneath the tree. And that was my dad's train. And it was a nice Wabash AB unit with freight set. And that was just on a little 4x4 that ran around the tree. And I was allowed to run it, but my mother made sure that she was always present if I was going to turn it on and Dad wasn't home. So I started it out like many of you did, you know, and that grew in interest over the years to the point where I realized when I was old enough to earn some money that I could, as a paper boy, afford to buy some other cars. So that's, in fact, what I did. And then I turned 15 years old. And when I was 15, I ended up in the high school marching band. Now, what's the correlation to trains in the band? Well, the correlation was that the band had numerous other dads that happened to have the same hobby. And that actually accidentally slipped out one time. And I heard of some hobby stores that I'd never heard of before. So, of course, on a Saturday back in the day, you could get on a city bus. I lived in the outskirts of Reading, Pennsylvania, and you could hop on the bus and you could go in and you could find these hobby stores. And my younger brother, who was, you know, he was 4 years younger than I, he and I hopped on the bus and we went in town and we'd go to the train stores. So that's how it started for us. And from that, I ended up joining the TCA. After I joined the TCA, I met this gentleman one year. His name was Al Stauffer. And this was in the late 80s. And it had been a few years since I had been married and hadn't been at a show for a while. And I walked into this show and I saw these trains that looked larger than Lionel. And I asked Al, what was I looking at? You know, what is this? And he said that these are actual 1/4-inch scale models. So with that, I purchased my first piece of brass from Al Stauffer. And that happened to be a C&O piece. And that's what got me started on turning all those plastic classics into cash, which turned into brass.
Terrific.
And
At what point did you decide to get started with importing? How did that evolve?
the importing started because, unlike within Lionel, you had box cars that were of a different variety. You had hopper cars that were of a different variety. And of course, I wanted to model a specific railroad, which was Chesapeake and Ohio. And I could not find enough variety in as much as there was 3 cars out there. I knew that there was oodles of different kinds of cars. So I I went to Precision Scale. I asked them what it would cost me if I wanted to do an exclusive run of an item. I had been a member of the Historical Society and had access to tons of drawings. And they basically were going to charge me a full retail price. So I lost interest in that real quick. That was probably about 1997. So along comes York Big TCA show again. That's still my main outlet for trains, in as much as I was starting to go to the Eastern O scale train shows that were run by Dave Richter and were ran by Dan Heenan before him. And, you know, all this variety had me intrigued. And that's when I decided I was going to search the internet and see if I couldn't come up with someone who built brass models. So in '99, I ran across at one of the York train shows a brass caboose sitting just out of reach on a seller's table. And I asked if I could actually hold it and see it. And the gentleman reached in with one of those grabbers, picked it out and gave it to me. And I jotted down a website and an address and took that information home with me. And I contacted the gentleman through the website, and we began a conversation, at which point in time he wanted to sell me everything that he had because he couldn't make a go of it. And he was a interesting individual, was willing to share information. And that was because he had a factory in China that he was trying to support before he threw in the towel. So we chatted. A couple of weeks later, he sent me an email and asked if he could come and visit me. And I asked him what he was going to show me. And he said he was going to show me the models that he built for Great Britain. So to my surprise, here he was already an importer, importing models by himself in conjunction with Bachmann UK. And he had produced some pieces for Bachmann UK at that point in time. And as many of you gentlemen know, in the UK, if you built an O scale or whatever scale model, you were buying a box of flat brass that was etched, maybe. That might have been, some of the pieces might have been punched. And more than likely, you did not get drivers or wheel sets or motors. And you had to source those type things from other companies. So someone who worked with Bachmann UK got the bright idea of importing things and didn't have the funding for it. So my builder had to come from a very unique background. We won't go into that. And he had the money. So he built things into the UK, found himself successful, but he knew that that wasn't enough to keep a factory afloat. So he called me up. He decided he was going to come out and visit me. And I had no idea where this guy was coming from. I thought he was coming from China. And comes to the house on a Saturday morning, carrying 2 grocery bags, one in each hand. And he starts to pull out brass models that he produced for the UK market. And the piece that really caught my eye was like a double-ended, like the double-ended Baldwin that Jersey Central had years ago, and a few other roads. And it had beautiful compound curves on it. And I said, does it run? And he says, do you have a layout? I said, sure I do. And took it down, put it on the track, and you couldn't hear it. And it was beautiful. It was directional lighting. And with that, he said to me, what do you want to build? So I pulled out drawings of a simple C&O hopper car. And it was the drawings from the railroad from the car company. We reviewed the drawings, and then after we reviewed all the drawings, I pulled out a precision scale car that in fact was produced years back by Precision. And I said to him, the reason I held this off was because the drawings are correct, the car isn't correct. And I said, you have to, so I hesitate to give you this, but I'll give it to you anyway. But you have to remember, in all instances, the drawings are correct and the car isn't. So he took the drawings, took the car, and 2 months later, I got a package back from him in the mail. And it was shipped to me from China. And it was the model, it was the drawings. All the drawings were marked up in Chinese, characters. And he gave me a legal sheet of paper, line by line, itemizing what he would have to purchase and buy and provide to build 100 of these models. And at the very bottom of that ledger sheet, he wrote the paragraph, I'm sorry, but at this point in time, my factory does not have the skill to produce what you would need. So the very first thing I learned about him was that he was honest. And I thanked him, and I figured, well, that was one dream that's just not going to happen. So 9 months went by. He called me up. His English was absolutely terrible. I had a hard time understanding him. What I learned later was that he actually lived in New Jersey. He actually worked for Sun Oil Company for 15 years. He actually had his PhD in chemical engineering. He was a very brilliant individual and was thrown out of Las Vegas when he was in college because he was a great card counter. So anyway, we went through that discussion. He was calling me from China. He did his best to speak his best English. And he said, all I want is $2,000. He said, you make me a check for $2,000 and send it to this address, and I'll build you a pilot model. And up until that point in time, I had, been buying Lionel trains forever, spending money foolishly. And I thought, well, I've done dumber things already, so I'm going to do this. So I wrote the check out, sent it to the address he wanted it sent to. And about 2 months went by, and he said, what color box do you want? I said, I want a blue box, medium blue. So he calls me back a couple days later. He says, I can get your red boxes, but I can't get your blue boxes. And I'll give you 3 guesses as to why you can't buy blue in China. You know what their national color is. So we had red boxes. So I get this model out of nowhere. It comes FedEx to the house. It goes DHL and then FedEx and then to me. I opened it up, and it was beautiful. It was a very accurate representation. I did a lot of measuring. I did a lot of, comparing to photographs, comparing it to the Precision car. It didn't have the errors that the Precision car had. And I'm sitting there doing this, and he knows that I have it, and he calls me on the phone, and I'm sitting there going over it. And he said, did you get the car? I said, yes, I did. And I said, I love it. I said, you did a great job. I like this. I like this. I like this. I listed like 10 things that I was amazed with and very pleased with. And I said, of course, there's 1 or 2 things that we need to correct. And he said, just tell me what they are and we'll correct them. He said, how soon can we start to build them? I said, well, I said, the rest of the story is this. In 2 weeks, there is a big train show in Ohio. And I'd like to take this to the train show in Ohio and see how much interest there is for these cars. And he said, okay, we can do that. He said, but what do you want me to correct? and it was everything about the braking system. His initial models that I saw had a lot of turnings. They weren't castings. And I had harped on him from the very start that the braking system had to be made from castings. In the end, I learned that he went to a jeweler, and his patterns were basically made out of silver for the steps for the cars and for the air brake pieces, and they vastly improved. So going forward from that, I went to that first show. I took reservations for 199 cars that day in Ohio.
Wow.
I have not bumped into anybody that has ever been able to tell me something like that happened to them as an importer. So I was very lucky. So he started building. I sent an ad to O-Scale Trains, O-Scale News, 48 to the foot. They ran a little ad. Cars were $199, no trucks. We ended up building 700 cars. So that was like, the rookie that steps up to the plate and hits the grand slam his first time. And it's never going to happen again. And that's how it started.
That's great.
So the seed money for that came, there you
Here,
go.
by the way,
There you
that's-
go.
that's the car.
That was one of the first two. We did an oval end car, and we did an oval end car that had a dreadnought end stamped. And then we did 4 other varieties. So
David, could you show that again?
And the lettering is backwards, as you can probably see, but the prototype is correct.
So that
Wow.
was a major coup for me, and that gave me, that paid back my mom and dad, the $15,000 that I borrowed from them. That put money back in my bank because I took all the money out of the bank that I had, and that also paid back one of my good train buddies, John Dunn, who passed away recently. So John was with me, and we did a lot together over the years. And part of what I did in the early years was in no small way, thanks to John. John was very helpful in those first early years because money was something that the builder wanted up front. And most people don't realize that. So where do you come up with $30,000 for a partial payment? And so I'd scrape stuff together any which way I could. And then we got into the whole concept of reservations like I understand others did. But one of the key things that pushed and propelled my business was the fact that I decided to be a direct sale importer. And I didn't have middlemen, because middlemen, all they did was devalue the model, because Overland and Precision and everybody else had to put a certain markup in there for that middleman to make. Otherwise, there was no incentive for that middleman to be a part of the whole thing. And in going to China, where labor was cheaper than Korea, I could make a decent profit in the beginning years. And as time went on, that diminished. So that's how it all started.
Give us the sequence of models that you've imported, just a listing so you refresh everybody's recollection. What models did Rich Yoder bring in?
Well, the first were the series of different 50-ton and hopper cars that were for C&O, nickel plate, Clinchfield, Wheeling and Lake Erie, Pittsburgh and West Virginia, and Lynchfield, and a couple other roads. We found out much later that the Santa Fe actually had some of those 50-ton twin hoppers. Second project that I did, and the projects were picked based on what locomotives had been imported and what importers brought in to support the fact that, you know, they built a Western Maryland steam engine. So the second on the list were Western Maryland channel side hopper cars. And the Western Maryland, prior to the years that I built the cars, Overland came in and imported a beautiful 280 consolidation. They produced a big 210, and they produced no cars or cabooses. So, or I guess they did do cabooses. So I figured I'll do some hopper cars, and had a guy call me up one night, the name of Pat Mitchell, and played 50 questions with me. I didn't know Pat Mitchell, and he is a diehard Western Maryland modeler in Proto 48. And he, in a big way, wanted a bunch of cars. And I sort of immediately guessed and realized that this was going to be another successful project. So between wood chip cars, covered hoppers, and hopper cars, we produced somewhere around 350 pieces. So that was that project. Project after that was a pen project. We produced a GLCA and a GLA hopper, both twin pocket hopper cars. Those were owned by multiple railroads that were associated with the Pennsy. They were produced somewhere between the two of them. There was like 450 pieces done between the two of them. From that, I start to lose direction as to what I produced next. But we did some tank cars, some ACF tank cars that were the early high roof walk cars. One thing I learned was that some information was readily available from car manufacturers still today, and others was available through historical societies. So along the way, you meet a lot of interesting people, and doing the research on a lot of these projects is more fun than actually seeing the models built. And the ACF cars, they had a common underframe for anywhere from a 4,500 gallon tank to an 11,000 gallon tank. They all used a common underframe. So in essence, the underframe was overbuilt for most of the cars. And, you know, that they were just altered by putting wooden wedges in the saddle area to hold the different size tank. And again, the tank cars were immensely popular. That was a 400 some piece run with the variety of single dome 8,000, single dome 10,000, triple dome 8,000, single dome 6,000, twin dome 6,000. And I had a custom painter up in the Lehigh Valley area. His name was Ken Beeler. A lot of you might know that name. Ken was struck with Parkinson's about 10, 15 years ago, has not done much painting. It's a shame, but you know, that creeps up and gets some of us. But Ken was a big part of my my business. He was a great custom painter. In addition to those type cars, I also produced some unusual cars that were more prominent across the entire United States than the Pecos River Brass helium cars. And that was a Matheson dry ice car. You know, I never realized how much dry ice was a part of cold storage facilities, in addition to pond cut blocks of ice that was common in a lot of your cold storage facilities. And I discovered that a lot of dry ice was sold through companies that also sold coal. And that they were oftentimes that there was a dry ice facility, storage facility near a lot of your coal companies that you know, would bring in different coal for heating, for home heating. And in Reading, Pennsylvania here, there was a company that sold dry ice locally that was a half a block from a coal yard. So the Matheson dry ice cars went over in a huge way. And at the beginning of the build, I found that there was another car company or another style coal, dry ice company that had a different style car that was based out of Chicago, and that was called Liquid Carbonic Corporation. And some of you may know that name from old-time soda fountains. They also produced old-time soda fountains that were in all your corner drugstores. So they had their own cars that serviced a lot of soda fountain companies or a lot of drugstores across the United States. So those cars were kind of prevalent on a lot of railroads. And as I started collecting photographs, I realized that they went from coast to coast, that they had Matheson had their main facility in Virginia, Saltville, Virginia. They also had another chemical plant in Arizona where they produced dry ice. And they had another plant up in the New England states. So they drew from 3 plants to service our country, primarily prior to World War II.
I have a feeling that we're going to hear some questions on some of the specific cars, and I don't want to cut that short, but I want to keep on moving if we may. Tell us about the trucks, because you developed a reputation for producing large numbers of high quality trucks, almost independent of the cars that you imported.
Well, the first cry that I heard from people was that your cars aren't painted. The second cry that I heard from people were that you don't have trucks under them. And we had been working on trucks as long as we had been working on cars. And the die sets to produce a wheel was costing me $1,000 a try. And I say a try because I pay for die sets 3 times. The wheels were a sintered iron product. That was the process that we wanted to use, because that would give you the fins on the back of the wheels. And the company that was working for us never produced anything for model railroading. They produced sintered iron pieces for other industrial purposes. So I paid for the first try. My builder paid for the second try. I didn't want to give up because he sounded as though the second try was better than the first try. So I paid. Pardon?
Go ahead. If you're not muted, please do so.
So I paid for the third try on doing wheels. The factory paid for the fourth try on doing wheels because they knew they broke it accidentally. And then when we finally got it right, the 5th time around, we started pounding out wheels by the thousands. Because after number 5, after $5,000 was spent, we finally could produce a wheel that they didn't break the dies on. So those wheels were under development for, I don't know, 2 years at least. And it was very painful. The brass castings to make the side frames and all that, that was a no-brainer. in as much as it went through several iterations of the first dies. My builder absorbed those problems. My first trucks that were actually imported, does anybody remember my first trucks and how much they cost? Anybody remember what I sold them for?
$25.
Nope, $15 a pair. The
Ah.
very first ones were $15 a pair. I got 50 pairs of trucks. The deal was I'd sell one pair to a customer. That was it. And with that, then we went to the trucks. We established that a pair of trucks was $25. So David, you probably missed out on the first ones, but you were there for the second ones. So with that $10 jump, we recouped a lot of the money that he lost through all the months of trying. He lost quite a bit, but he didn't give up. So that's where we went. And we went on to produce. He understood that every car needed its own specific truck, according to me. And so that's why we ended up with the variety of trucks that we did. And I say we, I mean the hobby. And we ended up with about 17 different styles of trucks that my builder produced for us. About half of those were offered in Proto 48 and O. All of them were offered in O.
How do you see the present status of your business, and how do you see the future of your business and of brass importing generally? I'm not asking for any trade secrets that you might have, but what can you tell us?
Well, my business, along with all the other businesses that went into China, created something that the country didn't have 35 and 40 years ago. It started with Reagan, rather Nixon, when he opened up trade with China back in the early 70s. At that point in time, we started the development of a middle class of people in China. So by the time the year 2000 came around, the middle class in China was getting paid in the vicinity of $1 a day. So you go from people who have no money to now people that get paid $1 a day. My builder was unique in that he was a very intelligent individual. He was raised in mainland China. His grandfather was a party member, and therefore his grandfather had money. His grandfather knew that he was smart, and for the equivalent of junior and senior high school, his grandfather sent him to Hong Kong. He did well in junior and senior high school equivalent, and therefore he sent him to Stanford University in California to be educated. And the first thing that my builder knew that he had to do was become a U.S. citizen. So he had dual citizenship. All of these things I learned later. So why is this important? This is important because he learned how to treat people fairly. Commonly, and it probably still happens today, if you come off the farm, and that's where a lot of the labor comes from in Chinese factories that are along the coast, oftentimes you aren't paid, not for weeks, not for months, but for up to a year, until you prove you can do the job. My builder had the reputation of paying a man's wages for the first day in as much as he may dismiss him at the end of the first day. So my builder had no problem hiring people. He just had to weed out the ones that had the intelligence to move forward and be useful. So we created a middle class that is very well paid in their own right today. And because of that, the cost of goods has gone up that are exported from China. Just like we lost the builders in Japan to the builders in Korea because Japan got too expensive to build in. The builders that are in Korea now, a lot of them have assembly points in China, and so that they could stay in business. And the Chinese builders, like my builder went out of business about 10 years ago. He could not any longer afford to pay his employees the salaries that they required to stay employed with him. They were being stolen away by other places. And his competition was one of them in part was a GM car plant that was down the road from him about 2 miles. And he lost a lot of employees to General Motors. And they could just pay far more money than he could. So he suffered from a labor issue. And he knew that he couldn't afford 10 years ago to charge me $400 for a model because I couldn't sell them. And so as my profit margin dwindled and his profit margin dwindled, he drew a line in the sand and said, this is it. And that happened back before COVID. So the last 2 projects that I produced were produced in Korea. They were Santa Fe box cars and stock cars. And they were the ventilated Atlantic Coastline cars and the C&O fruit and vegetable cars. And those 2 car projects were very successful in that I sold the numbers, but the profitability on that made my time worth about 10 cents an hour. So that was the only person who really won was the builder. And the other person that won was the modeler who always wanted one. And, you know, at that point in time, John Smith's labor of love analogy comes into play. And that was the end of that. So right about now, having spoken with the importers who are out there today that were doing it through last year, one's thrown in the towel, and the other is trying to ride the crest of the wave, and he doesn't know exactly when that wave is going to break. And that is Scott Mann. So he knows it's close to the end. The labor has just gotten way too expensive. So that's where we're at.
Rich, thank you very much for this, for both the history and then your assessment of where we are. I am sensitive. People keep beating me up for having these shows run longer than they are scheduled to do. I've been thrashed quite soundly on several of them. But before we leave you, I do want to have you tell us just a little bit about the Strasbourg show, where it came from, where it is now, where you see it going, and give us at least a couple sentences on John Dunn. You did that before, but you might elaborate a little bit since he's been your co-sponsor.
Well, Strasbourg shows came about after a long succession of individuals who ran shows in Eastern Pennsylvania, starting all the way back with Dan Heenan. I hope that some of you remember who Dan was. He was the first one to bring out that 048 to the foot magazine, you know, which turned into a much more glitzy modern publication and then went by the wayside when Greg Heyer passed away and Tom Dixon, or Nixon, decided that he was no longer going to produce it, that it was no longer a viable option. As a result of that, we lost that magazine. So we felt as though there still needed to be a rallying point and something that helped to hold us together as modelers. And those were the train shows. So in Eastern Pennsylvania here, we've had train shows run by Dan Heenan. Then they were taken over by another gentleman for a very short period of time. His name was Walt, and I can't remember his last name. And then they were taken over by Dave Richter. Dave Richter was from Philadelphia. Dave retired and moved to Virginia and was going to give up the shows. So Dave gave up the shows, and John and I palled around for years doing stuff together in O-Scale. Always had fun, always went to shows, and we said, well, I guess it's time that we do it. And he did some scouting in Lancaster County, and he brought me over, and we went around to a couple of places, and we settled on the Strasburg Fire Company. Strasburg Fire Company was basically a local community fire company that was trying to make it in supporting the community. So they offered up their facility to us for a reasonable price. And per show, we started out paying them $150 to rent their facility. But there was one problem. They didn't have any tables. So John and I each pitched in $1,500. We went to Delaware. We bought tables because there was no tax on stuff in Delaware. We drug as many tables back as we could to the show, and then we realized during the show, what are we going to do with these things? So halfway through the show, we started talking with one of the firemen, and we asked him if we could store them in their basement. And he said, well, why store them in the basement? We have a room here for tables. We just don't have any. So he opens up this door that had 2 tables inside. And he said, you can keep them here. I said, that's great. And you can use them whenever you need them. So it was a win-win situation for us. So we ended up I own today 90 plus tables. And we store them at the fire company. And the fire company uses those tables for all their events, and we use them for our 3 events. And that kept us on even footing for quite some time until COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, our show rate tripled. And then after COVID hit, it went through the roof. So it is what it is. So the shows are not cheap to run, just like making trains. We don't make a profit on running the show like we used to. We make enough to print the flyers, we make enough to have some fun, and we go out for dinner and we have a good time. And we attract guys from all over the East Coast. We attracted at the last show, we had 136 people pay through the front door. That was a largest number we've had since before COVID. That doesn't include dealers or dealers' helpers, or it doesn't include wives or kids. So we had a great show, and everybody was complaining, oh, there's no room to park. Well, that was a nice problem to have. So John and I ran that together up until 3 years ago, when he told me he was going to retire. And John was an individual who was very private about things. And he passed away due to a lot of physical ailments that he didn't want to address for whatever the reason. And none of us understood it to this day. And, cancer is one thing that can be overcome, and John didn't want to address it. And that's basically what got him in the end. And it was a shame because it could have been dealt with. But he was a good friend, a good modeler. He was a great modeler. And that's that. And now we have all kinds of things to wade through. John, in some ways, had more trains than brains. He had 4
I
storage
think
units.
that's a common affliction on
Yep.
this call, I suspect.
Yep, he had 4 storage units full of trains, and we're still wading through them, trying to put together a list. So we think in about 3 months it'll be done.
One of the things that has always struck me, Rich, is the way that you have approached the hobby. Starts with friendship and community, and that turns out to be a lot more important than the hardware. And I have always appreciated and respected the fact that as you've gone through, this has not been a burn the bridges behind you. It's not been a let's see how many enemies we can make, whatever. And I think that's really important to the satisfaction we all get. So I want to thank you on that. And
Well,
I'm
it's not uncommon that the week or two after Strasbourg, I got a lot of phone calls and emails saying, "Hey, can you tell me who was at table such and such, and can you get me in touch with them?" And there's a lot of those kind of communications that fly around after the show, helping guys connect with each other for whatever the reason. And so there's a lot of camaraderie. And the next show, the show in August, which I'm going to start advertising for next week, has a family emphasis. I try to get people to realize that there's a lot to see and do in Lancaster County. I try to encourage young families to make it a long weekend and include the 4 hours of our train show. And there's a lot of people across the country that are very envious of what we have here in the East. And that's, that's fine. Somebody else somewhere else can try the same thing. And, you just got to stick with it. You got to be persevere and try to appeal to the masses. So.
great. Rich, thank you very much for making time for us. I'm going to call it in terms of the formal part of the meeting now. All that said, we have, and I understand that there may be people who need to leave. There's no penalty for doing that. But for people who want to stay, number one, since Rich has just finished his presentation, there may be people who have questions for him about either the show or the models that he has had. I want to give some time for that. And we have a number of announcements and questions and so on. I did get some questions about there's a new product. The Atlas is bringing out the 280 that is apparently based on the Weaver tooling. We've had some questions about future O-scale conventions. There may be other things on your mind, but since we have just finished Rich's presentation, I want to sort of draw the line. The formal meeting is complete. By the way, at this time, let me confirm that the next meeting, I had this written down. The next meeting is, help me, Greg.
Yeah, just a second, David. Let me look it up. It will be May 19th.
May 19th. So the same weekend next month. You will receive, if you are a member of O-Scale Central, a special invitation for the show. If you are on Dan Dowdy's O-Scale resource list, he very graciously sends an announcement, an invitation to everybody who is on that list. And we really appreciate the things that Dan does generally, but in particular, we appreciate the fact that he allows us to use that list. So at this point, the formal meeting is adjourned. we will now go into what I loosely call the good and welfare part of the meeting, but we'll begin with any questions anybody has for Rich Yoder.
I have one if he's available.
Yes, sir.
You can tell in the background that I'm into motor cars, and I've heard that you've had some motor cars out there, some speeders. Just wondering if you still have any of those and be interested.
Well, the speeders or the gang cars was a fun little project that was done several years ago, many years ago. And every once in a while they pop up on eBay. There might be one in John Dunn's collection, but we probably have 60% of his collection itemized. There's 40% of it left to go. He just had an immense amount of stuff. So there may be one in there. Since you're the first one to mention it, you got first dibs on it, Carl, if it's there. Send me an email afterwards, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
More questions for Rich Yoder? He covered a lot of territory, so. All right, let's go ahead and move on. First, I want to do just a quick shout out to some of the celebrities we had. Martin Breckbiel, who is the editor of O-Trains magazine, and which is now O-Trains Annual, was here earlier. And Martin has been supportive of O-Scale Central and supportive of O-Scale 2-Rail in general. If he's still here, hiya.
I'm still here, David. I'm still here.
Oh, there he is. Okay, anyway.
Just
Martin,
look under the gooseberry bush. That's where I'll be.
Okay, tell me if you've got anything on the publication date for the O-Scale Annual and anything else you want to tell us about that.
All I know is what they tell me, and they tell me precious little other than sometime in May, the annual will come out.
All right. If you want the annual to continue, you got to support it. There's no doubt but what we would all prefer a monthly or bi-monthly magazine.
Well,
we need to improve the circulation and support the annual that's coming out.
Well, even if we have enough subscribers and sales, we still need the advertisers. Those advertising dollars pay a lot of the bill.
Somebody said that the secret of the publishing business generally is you buy newsprint for $1 a pound and sell it for $5 a pound, and a lot of that is the advertising revenue.
There you go.
We also have Jim Kello from New Tracks. New Tracks does a lot of interesting stuff in terms of building a model railroading community, and Jim Kello, who is an O-Scale traction modeler, so he's sort of our man, surreptitiously promoting O-Scale and other scales as well. And Jim has, and I'm going to beg as compact an announcement or set of announcements as you can, but he's got some things he wants to share with us before, and I'm going to do that as soon as I get through the rest of the introductions. We have several folks from O-Scale Central Leadership. Eric Peterson is here, Al Aslapas, Joe Barker, who's our membership director, Scott Krasowski, who's come in and really done a great job with the website, Paul Hansen, who's doing Proto 48 and is now sponsoring a show in Indianapolis, which has been gone for a couple of years, and Rich Randall, who is modeling the Milwaukee Road in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. All of these are folks who've been working with us. I apologize if I have missed anybody. But Jim, tell us what you got on your mind real quick.
I think everybody knows that NewTrack sponsors a scholarship program. This year, we're giving away 3 $2,000 scholarships. One of those was 100% funded by the Pacific Coast region of the NMRA, and we're very happy and proud about that. David Schultz was representing the O-Scale community on our scholarship committee and notified me the other day that he's just got too many other things on his plate to continue that. So I'm looking for somebody that might be interested in replacing David on our scholarship committee, representing the O-Scale community. So if you have any interest in that, if you'd like to talk about it with me and find out what's more about what's involved in it and how much time it might take you, please send me an email and we'll talk about it.
Okay, and that's Jim Kello #1 at Gmail. No.
Yeah, you can use that. I hope that you'll delete that before you put it on the internet. But yeah, you can. That's my personal email.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I prefer you to use Jim Kello at newtracksmodeling.com. Anyway, the second thing I'd like to talk about just a minute. Once a month, we do what we call a My Build portion of our Zoom show, where we offer the viewers the opportunity to show what they're building. This could be their layout, this could be a car, this could be something under construction, it could be something they're having problems with, and we'd like to talk about what the problem they're having building it is. It could be a new product by a manufacturer, it could be anything that shows other modelers what you're building and gives you an opportunity to talk about it a little bit. I encourage O-Scalers to participate in that. Everybody that participates in that on the show also gets written up in either my next article, which will come out depending on what month it is, in either the S-Scale Resource Magazine or the O-Scale Resource Magazine. And the individual modeler gets all the credit for the models that they show and what some of the discussion that they had on the show itself. So our next one is this coming Wednesday, the 24th of April. If you have a model you'd like to show, I encourage you to do it. The purpose of it is to get other people building models, building kits, scratch building. And the only way that I know to do that is to show what we're doing. And hopefully that will encourage other people to want to do the same thing. The one after this Wednesday is May the 22nd. So that gives you plenty of time. And I really do encourage you to do it. Again, my email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. And I've got some other things, but that's all I'll take the time for today, David. If you can find a way to get me in touch with Tom Hobart, I appreciate it. And somebody from O-Scale West.
Okay, Jim Cantor has Tom Hobart's contact information. Jim, you now have Jim's email, which is jimkello@newtracks.com.
Newtracksmodeling.com.
Modeling.com. Sorry about that. Anyway, work directly with him if you would. All right. What else we got by way of announcements? Good and welfare? Anything going on? If there are not, go ahead.
This is Jim Cantor. Yesterday we had about 35 members of the local NMRA chapter that came over, and many were introduced to O-Scale, and specifically your video showing O-Scale Central's features and benefits of O-Scale was represented on a large screen TV with the help of Paul Hansen, and it was very well received. A lot of people enjoyed looking at it and looking at the layout. So we had a great time celebrating O-Scale yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the update.
David, I'd like to hear the report on York.
That'd be great. York. Who?
I'm here. I can do it.
Rick Wright went to York.
I'll give you a 2-minute tone burst. I was there for 5 hours, and I focused very much at the Atlas booth and complimented Andy Edelman that the new catalog, which you can get online, with the exception of the Wedge snowplow, every model, motive power, passenger train or passenger cars, diesel, steam, etc., will be offered in 2-rail O-scale, in addition to their normal 3-rail. In the very beginning, David, you alluded to the steam engine. Yeah, this is the Weaver 280, which is coming out. They've done some enhancement on the original casting. It will come with PS3, which allows you to use DCC. John Sethian, of course, he uses DCC all the time, and it works very well. Of note, the catalog talked about various things that, you know, some of us are interested in, some of us not particularly so. What really surprised me in both the online presentation 2 weeks ago, as well as talking with Andy at York, the demand for New Jersey Transit. Boy, I tell you, that is, according to Andy, that's the big moneymaker right now. Everybody wants a New Jersey Transit. The other thing I said, okay, the catalog didn't do that much for me, a couple things, but I said, okay, here's what I'm really interested in. As a guy interested in the prototype, when are you going to do these CSX legacy ES44 ACs that if you get into the prototype magazines, etc., they're all over. The RF&P one just came out, etc. He looked at me and smiled and said, we're working on it. So I suspect in the future we should see ES44 ACs. And the other final good thing, separate and distinct from Atlas, Walther's Goo is back. I bought 5 tubes. The state of California had them withdraw it nationwide because the lettering that it causes cancer in California, something, it's just incredible. Anyway, so Walther's Goo is back, and the lady that I bought it from, she had a very large exhibit area. She had already sold 25 tubes of Walther's Goo in 5 hours. Other than that, hey, it was really delightful. Remember, Edelman was on about 4 or 5 months or so ago with our group here. He talked about it kind of, my mother, my dog, ate stuff. He wasn't sure how much corporate was going to, Atlas Corporate was going to embrace it. They have clearly embraced 2-rail. So Andy says the guys have got to buy it so we can keep producing it. That's it.
Thank you, Rick. That's terrific. Get a hold. It's atlasrr.com, right? Is their website?
Well, tell you the truth, you know me in technology, kind of like you, severely challenged. I just type in Atlas O in Google and it comes up.
Excellent. So let's support Atlas if they're doing good stuff. Let's at least give them the benefit of the doubt. They were moving definitely in the direction of 3-rail. I'm glad they're at least doubling back a little bit into 2-rail. All right. Anybody got any question, comment before we pull the plug?
David.
Yes, sir.
This is Ed Fuller. Just wanting to promote the show we've got coming up. It's our big train show coming up the last day of May, 1st of June, here in Johnson City.
Johnson City, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of the biggest shows in the Southeast. We've got quite a number of vendors coming. And I know last year, we had maybe 8-10 vendors that was O-scale. It may be, I know the show may be a little small for what you guys normally do, but it's a way of drawing people out of the woodwork, if you will.
Terrific.
To have a presence down here.
Email, let's see, what would be the easiest way to email so we can get it listed on coming events? Why don't you
What I
send
can
it to,
do is scan it in and email either you or
yeah, just
Greg
email me and I'll get it, we'll get it listed on the coming events. And my email is NKPOS2R.
hang on a second. NKP what now?
NKP like a nickel plate. NKPOS2R at gmail.com. If anybody else has a message they need to get to me, use that. All right, I think we are probably at the end of the program. I appreciate everybody participating. We are trying to keep it reasonably short, doesn't always happen, but we do appreciate everybody's support. We're going to do this again on May 19. We will again have an interesting program and would much appreciate not only your coming, but if you get the word out to your friends and encourage them to come. Greg, do you have anything that we need to announce before we pull the plug?
Nope. The only other thing coming out soon is the next issue of O-Scale Resource, which should be out in 2 weeks or so.
Yes, and the Coupler, our quarterly journal is running a little bit behind schedule, but it will be out in the next few days as well. Thank you all. Happy O-Scale modeling. Thanks for participating.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.